Okay, everyone, this is going to be a very fast show because of other things going on. We're fighting the weather and Mr. Bit's time. it's too hot. Okay, Apple had plenty of announcements, and there's really too much to go here on the time we have, but we're going to do as much work as we can. First things first, Apple announced new iOS stuff, which is great. iOS 4.1 is pretty much the typical stuff. They fixed the proximity sensor, or so they say, so people won't be having dropped things like you were saying your wife's been having or whatever.
Yeah, I've dropped calls and
even after everything's fixed.
I've dropped calls. Man,
is it when she puts it up to her face, or is it?
No. And actually, the bars aren't even dropping. It's kind of like what I had on my 3G phone. They could have full strength and boop, it drops the phone call.
Okay. Hopefully, 4.1 update fix it for her. I thought we already had a 4.1, but
they did release an update, and they said they had fixed a lot of things for it. So, I don't know. I have to ask my wife. She doesn't use it enough to probably notice, so I couldn't tell you. But you were saying at 4.2 and what we were discussing earlier, the things I love about that is the wireless printing and finally making it in an API form that all applications can tap into.
Yeah, it's like the missing feature is finally available. That's
there are these specific applications of where you're installing it on a computer, and then the client and the phone speaks to the client and sends documents, and most of those are very limited. And who can communicate with that app anyway? So.
Yep. I'm glad they added it. I still don't know why it wasn't there to begin with. It's like I was saying before. Nobody is ever going to convince me that when Steve Jobs was sitting in his neo-modern house at any point that he didn't, he wasn't sitting on his couch and thought, I don't want to get up. I want to print from here.
Yeah. Hey, the same thing. Yeah. Why did copy and paste take so long? Why did multitasking and concurrency take so long? Apple does things on their own schedule. I'm just glad it is there. And it's a feature that I've been screaming about as a developer for a while, and a consumer, because it's very important.
Well, this goes back to other things. I really wish Apple would just open their API library for their developers to be more the stuff it should be. It's instead of this is the list for Apple and this is the list for developers. It's like only Apple can do this, and anybody else can't. It's like problems like this would be able to be fixed by developers with enough ingenuity and drive. Instead, they're kind of boxed in this is the road they must go, whether it's the best way to solve the problem or not type thing.
Yeah. What about the numbers? Because I know you wanted to talk about.
I'm skipping it again. I have to hand it to Steve. He tiptoed around that very, very elegantly. Very elegantly. He pointed out all their little stats and everything else, and accused Google of doctoring their numbers, which I think we both said we don't really believe they are. It's like I think that over 200,000 phones a day is new phones. They're in multiple countries. They're on multiple carriers. If they're not selling over 200,000 phones a day, it's.
I agree. It's like I was saying before. I'm fine that and they're going to have to come to terms that they're not going to be number one forever. It certainly wasn't the case with Mac, but with the Mac could have cornered the market. But with this,
iOS could have cornered the market if it wasn't dragging its feet.
Yeah, they could have cornered the market, but the iPhone. If you participate on one carrier, that's an impossibility. If you only have really one model, that's an impossibility. I mean, not everybody's going to buy that same phone. Just by sheer mathematics, it's not going to happen. So I think you're fine. And like you and I were saying, we definitely don't want an Android super dominant board just because.
No, it's like,
protecting another operating systems.
And I didn't realize Apple was this close to the end. And the way Steve Jobs presented this number like it's a great thing, we have over 230,000 iOS devices, which means all our devices together are just about that much more than just our competitors' phones. And they haven't even started to compete with us with tablets yet. That's coming next month. Then we're screwed. It's like...
I don't think that they should hang on to the market share argument, and it's never gone in Apple's favor. They're not, their business model is not that, and that's totally fine. They really sell to a certain demographic that has a certain amount of consumers, and that's it, and that's a good thing. And I think it's kind of like what you and I discussed in other shows, is that Apple still many times has an underdog mentality and saying, "Wow, if we've sold this much, we're really doing well," and they've really.
That's the thing. Apple can get there on stage and say we're the little guy anymore. It's not, but the truth is they're not. They're a big company. They're a multi-million company. They actually have one of the best supply chains of the OEMs. It's like they're one of the big guys. They need to accept that, which means it's expected for them to sell millions of units and have hundreds of thousands of activations a day. What's scary about this number is it might need to less competition in the long run, because there's no reason for Android to keep improving if it's not competing with anything. So, the other thing is, I was saying, and I've said this many times, it may take 3 years, it may be upwards of 5, but Android's going to overtake. With these numbers being this close, iOS is dead next Christmas.
Actually, Android is being sold with iPhones. I mean, that's already happened. But, total...
Well, but the total iOS devices is just over 230,000 today. Total Android phones only, no other devices, no tablets, no anything, over 200,000, which means it's that close, just with one little branch of the Android market competing against the whole of the iOS market. That means as soon as Android finishes getting on equal footing and adding these tablets, it's over. iOS is dead.
Yeah, it shouldn't be a market share type thing. I mean, market share is not everything, but I just don't like the contradiction that the super ultimate fan of anything would use as an argument, and then when market share is no longer in your favor for an argument, then you just resort to other types of argument. I never really use a market share argument other than when we're talking about viruses, and that's just to go against market share.
Market share is not the only criteria there. The other criteria there is spendability, viability of the platform, and other things. I mean, virus fighters aren't stupid. They put their bets on the platform they expect to grow the most or be exploitable, or sometimes a combination of the two. The other thing to put in there, as far as all of that goes. Oh crap, I've lost my chain of thought, which I can't afford to do with our limited time.
You're freezing?
No, I've lost my chain of thought. I was going to make a point, and now I don't remember what my point was, because I went the roundabout way to do it. I'll come back to it. It's like, I don't know. It had something to... It had... Oh, no, I remember it now. The market share, a lot of the stances Apple is taking with iOS is these dictatorial stances that they're taking are only enforceable and will not make the platform self-destruct if Apple has predominant market share. And the fact that they are this close to losing it, that it's not, oh, we have a few more years to milk out of this. It's we get our act together this year or we're screwed. Those totalitarian stances are really going to come back to bite Apple in the ass.
Well, I'll worry about Apple when they lose subscribers for other platforms. They have a pretty damn good, nice, sizable market. And I mean, look, Android's even going to overtake BlackBerry. And is that okay?
Honestly, BlackBerry doesn't belong in this race. BlackBerry needs to focus on doing what they do good, which is appealing to corporate customers and being secure.
Yeah, but they're still number one in sales of. Or did Android beat them for 1 quarter? I think.
Android beat them for 1 quarter.
Yeah, I mean, the thing of it is that if Apple maintains a lot of their user base that they have, I think it's a good, nice, comfortable place for them to be. And if they can gain some, and for the ones that they may lose, okay, it works itself out. I can't see them expanding anymore unless what we were saying before is, well, is there going to be another type of iPhone? Highly doubt it. They can go to Verizon, but how much more will that get them in Sprint? Because internationally they already compete against multiple carriers, and even in one country. So they can maybe get a little bit more. Who knows? I don't look at it as that because Android now becomes super dominant that's the end of the iPhone. It certainly puts silence on those that used to argue market share.
I don't think it's the end of the iPhone. I just think it's the end. Apple cannot take the stance they're taking with developers and everything else when they're.
In other words, I see what you're saying. Yeah, they'll have to be more careful, especially since more money can be made on other platforms on how they treat people.
Yeah, well, no, that's the thing with this transition of the shape of the ecosystem. Based on these numbers, only a fool doesn't think it's going to happen by next Thanksgiving or Christmas. That means Apple has a lot of groveling to do next year. They've set themselves up to do some groveling, especially when earlier this year they basically pissed a lot of people off and did sable routering, which only makes sense if you're going to be on top for a few years. Based on these numbers, they ain't going to be on top for a few years. They just put their tail between their legs, and they now have to turn around and go grovel to all the people they just pissed off. That's not a good position to be in.
The real area is the money to be made on the other platforms, and how large that becomes to 1, developers, 2, advertisers, and then 3, just hardware vendors and carriers. Because if a substantial amount of money can be made just off of Android alone because of its enormous size, that's an extreme concern.
Yeah.